Welcome to the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. It's Necro Thursday. How's it going, Jeff?
Not bad, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. As you know, we're recording this on a Sunday, and I gotta tell you, dude, I feel like I'm getting old. My body, I had all these like high hopes of doing deadlifts today, and I woke up like sore, like you would not believe, dude. So I think I'm just gonna go for a brisk walk today.
Hey, man, that's there's nothing wrong with a nice brisk walk. I do try to do at least 3 or 4 miles every day at the very least because I'm also getting old and everything hurts for no reason.
Yeah, it's funny. This is a little quick aside about getting old. Like about a year ago, I have obviously I've got massive knee problems, like injuries over the years. And like this is about 2 years ago, I finished training and I literally, all I did is step off the mat and twisted, my knee just tweaked and I was out for like a month.
Oh man,
And then like
yeah.
when I came back, when I came back to train, this dude Jordan, who's one of the instructors there, he's like, "Oh, you haven't been around in a while. What happened? You get hurt?" I go, "Yeah, my knee." He's like, "Oh, did you go hard in sparring or what?" I go, "No, dude. I just literally walked off the mat, and when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't move my leg."
Dude. Yeah, the first time I really hurt my back, I opened the refrigerator door and looked in to see what was in there, and my back just popped. Like I wasn't doing anything, wasn't lifting anything, didn't get up fast, anything. It just my back just went out doing absolutely nothing. So for all you younger listeners, this is what you got to look forward to.
Everything hurts when you hit a certain age.
Yeah, and it'll happen without warning or for any sort of reason.
But other than that, yesterday, yeah, I had a nice little Saturday. We went down to our storage space to get some Christmas stuff out, and I grabbed my acoustic guitar for a project proposal. Someone asked me about playing acoustically, so that might
Hmm,
happen, and so
okay.
I want to practice that. And then we went to the Christian run Hobby Lobby, right?
Mm.
So under protest, we went there. Tina had her goat whore hoodie on, and so that was cool. After that, we went to Wegmans, to get groceries for the next couple weeks, and then stopped at Home Goods because we had to buy a Christmas tree topper, as they're called.
Oh man, already with
Nice.
the Christmas trees.
Yeah. Well, she goes big with Christmas, so you know,
Okay.
nice little Saturday. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Did you bring your acoustic guitar to Hobby Lobby?
no, I did not. That was in the car.
I could see you walking down the wicker aisle, just strumming along.
Yeah.
Nice. That
And
does sound
Friday,
nice.
just real quick though, Friday night I caught Justin, my drummer Justin's band, his other band, Putrescension, one of many bands he plays in, by the way, called Putrescension. And Dan, our guitar player, also plays in that band. And it features Mike G from Replicant as well. And they played in Newark. So Friday night on the town, Newark, New Jersey, at this
Mm.
place called QXT's, which is like actually one of the oldest goth clubs in the New York, New Jersey area. Actually, probably one of the only remaining ones. It's been around for like 20 something years. And yeah, I saw this black metal show there. It was awesome. And if you guys want to check out Putrescension, definitely they get the thumbs up, 5 star from me.
Awesome. Now, Newark, is that where the Melody Bar used to be? Was that in Newark?
No,
That
no,
was
Newark is like right across from the city, from New York City. The Melody Bar, I think, was in New Brunswick.
okay. I get my parts of Jersey confused. Like I think that's where those famous grease trucks were. You got to remember those.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Took
yeah.
some
That
years off.
was,
Took some years off my life eating at that place.
oh yeah, yeah. That was a
Yeah.
cool spot. Definitely a good venue, but which has fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, like so many have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also Friday night, and we'll touch on this maybe when you talk about what you've done recently, was the the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight.
Dude, I watched that too. Let's just talk about it.
All right, let's just talk about it. All right.
uh, yeah, I feel like an idiot for being roped into watching it or caring. I mean, they've been talking about this for at least a year, maybe longer. And you saw the videos of Tyson training, and he looked ferocious. And started, yeah, yeah, man, Tyson still got it. He still got it. And then just watching that, and about sometime around the second round, I was like, man, we've all been duped. This is such a sham. This is ridiculous. Why is a 58-year-old man fighting a 27-year-old douchebag?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I had paid no attention to this fight at all until literally Friday. And
Smarter than me.
no, I mean, I just in my mind, I'm just like, this is bullshit. I'd rather watch actual fights, like actual combat sports, and we'll get to that later. Actually, yes, and so it was not on my radar of stuff that I pay attention to. But then Friday, when we were driving to the show, Tina was like, "Oh, you want to watch later? You want to watch the Tyson, fight?" Because the show was early. Like we were home by like 10:30 or something like that.
Oh,
So
that's always nice.
yeah, so when we got home, since it's on Netflix, we put it on, and she fell asleep, and then I watched the fight. So I'm stuck watching this thing, and I was just like for right before it started, I was like, I'm like, what is Tyson doing? But then like the minutes before, I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is going to be interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
Tyson. Like there's things that a guy like Jake Paul will never know about boxing because he started training when he was like what, like 24 or something like that.
I'm not even really sure who Jake Paul is.
I don't know who he is either. He's just some fucking clown that appeared out of nowhere and he's somehow a celebrity on the internet, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, um, and these guys like that are legit boxers have been boxing since they were like kids. You know what I mean? Since they were like young children. And just like the movement and the angles and like it's just a whole thing, a whole system that is ingrained in these guys because they've been doing it their entire life. And I was thinking that maybe some of that slickness was still there with Mike, and that's shit that Jake Paul will never ever got. And if you start training boxing when you're 20, you're
Hmm.
never going to have those skills like those
Right.
the real boxers have. You're never going to have them. You just don't have enough time in your lifetime to do that. And that's what I was hoping for, but obviously that was not the case.
No, God, no. Not at all. Tyson's been doing this since he was 13 years old. I grew up with Mike Tyson. He was the most
Yeah.
ferocious thing I'd ever seen, knocking people out in 30, 40 seconds. And yeah, I thought some of that old, some of that would kick in, but it was very clear early on that he's a 58-year-old guy, and you might be Mike Tyson, but at 58, you're not the Mike Tyson you were in your 20s. And I don't know why I just didn't realize beforehand. Uh, and these exhibition fights are never. I mean, everyone says that they're fixed, and they're probably right.
Probably, and they're 2-minute rounds, and I think the fight was what, it's 8 rounds or something like that.
Yeah, 8 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, that 2-minute rounds is like that's like amateur, like I think amateurs are still 3 minutes actually.
The
But
fight before it was 2-minute rounds too. The female fight title
I
fight
think I
that
think women's fights are only 2-minute rounds.
okay. That was a
In
good fight
certain,
though.
that was great because they're professional, legit fighters.
Yeah, exactly. The fight before it too was really good.
That's the travesty too, is you get a clown like Jake Paul headlining over these legit guys who've been doing it, people that have been doing it their entire lives, and they somehow they're on the undercard, and it's the worst. They get
Yeah.
probably less money too.
Oh, for sure. I think Tyson got 20 million, Jake Paul got 40. So you could go in there homeless, dead broke, millions of dollars in debt and walk out being set for life. That's completely insane to me.
Yeah, it really is.
And I contributed to it. I watched it. And another thing I want to say is Netflix should be absolutely fucking ashamed of themselves. My Netflix crashed about 40, 50 times
Yeah.
when I was trying to watch it. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, we had
Uh,
the same problem, definitely. It didn't
okay.
crash, but there was like it got hung up and there was like some issues for sure.
Yeah, I had to turn it off for a half hour and catch up. I had to do that a few times. And I'm texting my friend in LA and he's like, "Oh, it's working fine." It's like, "What's up with your Texas internet?" um, but if Netflix wants to, be the premier live event streaming service, they got to step it up, man. That was pathetic.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, the whole thing. was pathetic, and I'm pathetic for buying into it.
Yeah, I was bummed, man. And more so for like the fact of Mike Tyson tarnishing his legacy, man. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, it's meaningless, really, because Jake Paul is still yet to fight a guy that's his size, that's a
Hmm.
professional fighter. Like the one time he did fight a professional boxer, Tommy Fury, he's like two or three weight classes below him, and he beat his ass basically.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of hoping Mike would do since they're yeah, and Mike's like a small heavyweight too, man. You know what I mean? Mike could have probably been like a cruiserweight because if you look at him, he's a kind of a little guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's a little bit taller than me. I think he's like 5'10".
Yeah, so Jake still had like a a reach advantage and was bigger than him and all that sort of stuff. Maybe not weight wise, but his frame was bigger.
Yeah.
And like he's just like a terrible boxer, Jake Paul. Like he's just not a skilled boxer. And he's made his career on fighting nobodies or retired MMA fighters, and it's just meaningless, really, at this stage to beat up on a guy who's almost 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, regardless of his credential and all that, I won't give any respect to Jake Paul until he fights someone who's like his size and who's a professional. If he's going to call himself a professional boxer, he's got to put his big boy pants on and get in the ring with a real fighter.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
There's not a chance in hell that 27-year-old Jake Paul would stand a chance against a 27-year-old Mike Tyson. Not a chance.
Oh no, I mean Tyson fought what like 20 years ago, and I forgot the guy's name, McBride or some other guy, like just some can off the streets came in and knocked him out. So it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't look good for Mike at this stage either. 20 years later, he didn't get any better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, he owns like a weed company, a vape company. He's just chilling, getting fucking stoned all the time. He doesn't
I
want to
also
do this shit.
I also heard he was he was vegan for a while too.
Yeah, yeah, he was. Yeah. Um, what a character, man. Yeah, this gas station up the street from me sells Mike Tyson vapes.
That's
Like
awesome.
standing in line, and I'm like looking at this. I'm like, really? A tight like boxing guy selling vapes?
It's
But hey,
fucking it's,
man,
it's a wonderful world, isn't it?
it really is. But 20 million is 20 million. If someone asked me to get in a ring for $20 million, I'd fucking do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know
Yeah.
how to fight.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Good for him. I salute.
yeah, exactly. Good for him. But I feel dumb. Fuck that
Yeah.
shit. It was stupid, and I will not be duped again.
Even at the show, like I was talking to Justin, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna watch that Tyson fight later?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I wasn't really planning on it, but I guess now I am." And that's what happened. And we drove home, got something to eat, and we watched the fight.
Yeah,
It was
everyone at work was talking about it. This guy that I stand next to all day at work was like, "I'm not going to watch that. That's a disgrace to boxing." And when I was watching it, I realized what he meant.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's pretty bad.
yeah, whatever. I mean, aside from that, I finished The Penguin. The Penguin had wrapped up its 8 episode first and maybe only season. Did you finish The Penguin, Mike?
Not yet because we've been trying to finish up True Blood, and we're on the last few episodes right now. So that's been my operational directive is to finish True Blood for now. So yeah,
Ah,
I got halfway. I watched half of The Penguin. Probably watch it again from the beginning all the way through.
yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Pretty good show. I don't think it's amongst the greats. It's not The Sopranos or The Wire like some people are trying to claim. But it was good. And when you're done watching it, we'll talk about it. But
definitely.
very much looking forward to the next series, the Batman movie. We both loved the first one, and I have very high hopes for the second one.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think they're onto something with this whole universe they're creating.
Yeah, I think this is the way to go instead of doing an overarching DC universe, which they're still trying to get off the ground. I think it's a better idea to give these individual characters their own universe. And, because Batman, I mean, there's a lot of characters, a lot of different ways you can go with that. I think Batman can support its own universe. Doesn't need Superman or Aquaman or any of that stuff.
I mean, it's no sup- anyone who's been listening to me talk about comics for the last 10, 15 years, it's been like you all know that I love pretty much only Batman from the DC universe.
Same.
Mike's a DC guy, I guess, more than the Marvel dude. And I've always been more into Marvel and
Mm,
with the exception of Batman. Like I've always been a huge fan of Batman and well, the Swamp Thing and like the Vertigo titles I really like too.
yeah.
But yeah, you can do a whole Batman world. It's rich enough and it has a totally different vibe than the rest of the characters too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know much about comic books at all, but Batman's the only one I really ever cared about. And I don't think I've ever read a Marvel comic book outside of like a few Punishers or Daredevils when I was really, really young, but always gravitated towards Batman.
Yeah, yeah, no, and to kind of bolster that, I've been reading those Legends trades that I subscribe to. It's like the collection of the classic Batman eras, like, year zero and
Yeah.
year one and all these other things. And they did a real, it's not published by DC actually. It's another company licensed it from DC and they're like official trades,
Hmm.
but it's a different company that's doing it. And it's hardcover, high quality paper, really nice reproductions of everything. And I just been rereading all that stuff. So in addition to, other things, it's been great.
Yeah. I've kind of here and there been going back to the animated series from the 90s because that's streaming on HBO. And I hadn't seen any of those in a long, long time. So it's kind of fun to revisit that stuff.
Streaming series, I think the animated series is good as well.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, that's where Harley Quinn came from.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. What else you been checking out, man?
Well, we've been doing the True Blood marathon. We're
How's
zeroing in.
that going? By the way.
It's got its ups and downs. Like, I didn't dismiss it right away. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, you know what? Let me. It's been like a thing, since we started seeing each other a couple years now. Like, oh, you should watch True Blood. I'm like, I don't know. It's not really for me, whatever. And then she's like, all right, well, we're going to start watching it tonight. I'm like, all right. So we, um, we like, there's really cool things in there. And then there's things that I just are like, I don't know this, man. There's like some definite, like female romance aspects to it, like it
Yeah.
makes me think about those old school, like romance novels with like the shirtless ripped guy, that long, with the flowing locks, that there's a lot of that with it, which is like not really my thing. But then there's some cool storylines, and then there's some really drag storylines,
Yeah,
and then there's some really like like flights of fancy that are a little too out there for me, when it comes to certain things.
sure.
And they have werewolves, which are cool. And I thought the werewolves in True Blood were really cool portrayals of werewolves, which, I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. It makes me think vampires are like very much this kind of like very sissy sort of, you know, like I'm not just vampires are cool, but they have to be done the right way. And I don't think it was handled very well as like these kind of trying to mainstream in society. I don't know. It's just not really, I don't know. That part of it lost me a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get you. And aren't there like all kinds of mythical creatures by the end of True Blood? If I remember, there's fairies and gods and there's some.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been such a long time. I don't really
Well, yeah,
remember.
they cross into some Greek mythology. They cross into like some folklore with the Fae people, the fairies, and there's a lot of different. There's shifters, which
Right. That's it. Yeah.
I thought that was cool actually. I mean, it could have went darker, from for me when it comes to that. That opened up a whole possibility, which I wish they'd explored. But it's a bubblegum show and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
cool. It was fine. I enjoyed parts of it a lot, actually. I'm not gonna lie. And when there's great actors on the screen like Alexander Skarsgård and Rutger Hauer, it's great. Like watching those guys act in any format is awesome. you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And
But
it's
that,
cool. Like if there's something like your girlfriend or partner wants to watch and you're not that into it, it can be fun, like you're doing it for them. Like during the pandemic, my girlfriend wanted to watch the Avatar: The Last Airbender cartoon. I had no interest in that whatsoever. And by the end, I was really into it.
yeah, exactly, and so yeah, the guy that got on my nerves though was the Vampire Bill guy. That dude,
Yeah. Who, yeah, that guy came out of nowhere and I haven't seen him in anything since.
he's like a British dude, right?
I think so, yeah.
He fucking bothers me. That guy, I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, his
but there's an
Louisiana
there's an
accent's something.
yeah, there's an Australian in there, so that elevates the show a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a few Australians in there.
Yeah, I could probably when I go back and think about it, I could probably pick him out somehow.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome, man.
yeah, so we got like four, I think three more episodes left. We'll probably finish those at some point. Other than that, tonight we're gonna take the dog Ripley to see Santa Claus at the mall. So.
Oh, nice.
And that's it, man. That's a nice little weekend I had for myself.
Fantastic, man. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. We don't have any calls this week, but if you want to hit us up, you can hit us at 908-913-0782. 908-913-0782. And as most of you know, we are part of a larger organization of elite content creators called the Horsemen of the Podcast Apocalypse. So kicking things off every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. And Brandon has asked me to collaborate with him in his excellent Abraxas Horn project, which he's been doing for a few years. And me and Matt Prizzo have joined Brandon on creating the first LP, Liminal Darkness, which will be available. Next up, we've got Tuesday. Jackie Smith brings us into the Necrosphere, the finest extreme music podcast in the universe. And I say that with a lot of confidence. Wednesday is day one of double shot days. So we've got Everything Went Black, which is my podcast, which I've been doing for a bunch of years at this point. And you can catch all kinds of stuff on there. I've got actors, filmmakers, writers, musicians, MMA fighters, Muay Thai kickboxers, like all sorts of stuff on there. And we also have Iblis Manifestation brought to us by Cheyenne of the band Trivax. Thursday, in addition to being Necro Thursday, is another double shot day. Of course, we have Necromaniacs with myself, Jeff Kashid, or Mike Scandato, and occasionally Selden Hunt joins us. And we also have Soul Knox, brought to you by Carl Hikera. And that's for all things dark, arcane, occult, and esoteric. Friday, rounding the work week out, we've got Spitball Media, brought to you by Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. And that's an irreverent sort of pop culture focused show, occasionally crosses over with stuff that we talk about. But generally, we stay in our lanes, I guess.
Hmm.
Saturday is a day off. So now we're entering the mightiest season of the year. Winter is coming. So, go out, buy a scarf, get some boots, if you live in that part of the world, if you need that sort of, gear. Because on Sunday, Carl returns with day two of Soul Knox. And Carl and I are in the midst of doing our Darkness Weaves collaboration, which is a exploration of the work of Carl Edward Wagner, a author who specializes in horror, dark fantasy, sword and sorcery, weird fiction. And right now we're covering the Kane, world, and we just started Bloodstone, the first novel in the three-novel Kane series. And right now we're just blazing through all this stuff. It's been great, and that's it, man. We got a whole bunch of stuff for you guys on a weekly basis.
We got you covered.
Yeah, I think that's it, man. Now we can move on to the unless you want to talk about the UFC or something like that.
I did not watch the UFC fight. I have never really been a fan.
That would be the return of John Jones, possibly the greatest MMA fighter in the world, fighting Stipe Miocic, who is also a former champion, heavyweight champion. And John, this is technically a defense for John, But once again, it is a little bit of a work, if you ask me. John beat a guy who held the belt for one fight who wasn't really a champion very long. And I don't know. There's a lot of chicanery going on with the UFC and who fights who and all that. And I don't watch that promotion anymore. I stick to boxing and one championship and things like that. I boycott it because of Dana White and his right-wing affiliations. And but the one thing I did do is I looked on the YouTube to see if I can catch like a highlight or something of the fight.
Mm,
The first thing I see is Donald Trump sitting in the front row, and I turned it off. I'm like, fuck this shit, man. I don't need to be polluting
yeah.
my eyes with this,
Yeah. I think I remember a little while ago him walking into the UFC event was like the event. Like he's flanked by like Kid Rock. And
It's just not for me, dude. This whole thing
yeah,
is that it's just I don't need to be involved in any of this stuff anymore. Kid Rock, come on. You know what I
come
mean?
on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not I'm no longer supporting that. I don't well Dana White will never get another cent of my money or second of my attention. So there you go.
That was crazy too. When Trump was giving his victory speech, and you see Dana White in the background. Like, well, what is
Dude,
going on?
it's like, yeah, man. Yeah, I'd like to thank Dana White, Joe, shout out to Joe Rogan. Like, dude,
It's
this is
just,
a fucking president, man.
I
Uh,
know, strange world we're living in.
yeah. It's funny how I give him a southern accent, even though he's from like Queens or something like that.
I noticed that. Yes.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yes.
I don't want to get caught in another like rant like I did last week. So
Oh yeah. Hey, people liked it though.
I actually released the unedited version on the Everything Went Black Patreon. So Eddie that came out yesterday. So
Ah,
I
okay.
had
All
I had
right.
to edit quite a bit of that down for a number of reasons. So
Get any? Did you get any complaints?
not so far.
Oh, okay. I'm sure they're coming.
I'm sure there'll be some death threats, which is fine. You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys know where to find me.
All right.
I'm, all right, man. So onward, the substance, another film that comes at us in the fine year of 2024. Definitely a signature year for horror, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
Yeah. May 19th, 2024, released at Cannes Film Festival. How do you pronounce it, Jeff? Cannes?
I think you were right the first time. I think it's
Cannes?
Khan. Yeah, I'm ashamed that I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah. Okay. Cannes Film Festival. And then released September 20th, 2024 in the US and the UK, and then November 6th in France. So the French had to wait just until a few weeks ago to watch this film.
Strange.
Yeah, I mean the filmmaker is French actually.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
she is.
Written and directed by Coralie Fargeat.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. And we know her from Revenge, which came out like 6 years ago, maybe at this
Yeah, it's been
point,
a
seven
while
years.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that?
I did. I liked it. It was good.
It was good. I didn't love it, but I thought it was good. It was really well made, I thought.
Yes, completely agree.
Yeah. 141 minutes long. So it's an epic. That's this film.
Sure is.
Yeah. An all-star cast. We've got the return of Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle, Margaret Qualley as Sue, the great Dennis Quaid as Harvey, who fucking was incredible in this movie, if you ask me.
Yes.
Yeah. Trying to think about like see if anyone else in here is like anyone jump out at you as being addition to these powerhouses to mention.
Not really. I mean, those are basically the three characters. There's a few side characters. Oliver, the neighbor, and Fred,
Oh,
the high
right.
school friend.
Okay, yeah, Oliver is Gore Abrams. That's a sick name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Gore.
But, um,
Yeah. If I ever had a son, I would name him Gore. That's awesome.
yeah, seriously, that's a great name. And while we're talking about names, the names in this movie are very old fashioned, don't you think?
Harvey, Oliver. Well, Oliver, there's a lot of people I know named Oliver these days, but Harvey's definitely an old school name.
Sue, Elizabeth, not that these are like, way out of date, but I don't know. There's just something struck me as old fashioned about the names, and
I can
thought
see that.
maybe
Yeah.
they were there. I think calling Dennis Quaid's character Harvey was very intentional.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
Harvey Weinstein, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Like old school names. It's not like anyone was named like Denise or something like that
right.
or
Like
Eunice.
yeah. Oh, yeah, like Fred. Fred's a pretty old school name. You don't meet a lot of Freds these days.
You're right about that actually. Yeah, but there is a guy named Fred that comes immediately to mind that I know right now. But
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. I know a lot of Olivers, but they're all British.
Yeah, they're not American, let's say. I know a Canadian Oliver and most of the other ones are all British. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so a great cast. Um,
Small cast too. There's a huge movie, but it focuses on a very small group of people. Really, only two people.
and though it's long, it's over 2 hours long. The movie feels very intentional, though. It doesn't feel like it still feels pretty leanly edited, though, if you ask me.
Totally agree. At 2 hours 15 or 2 hours 20 minutes almost, I couldn't think of a single moment that felt like fat on the movie. It felt like everything, like, oh, you can't really get rid of this, you can't really get rid of that. Like you said, everything was intentional, and I feel really had to be there to make the movie what it is.
Yeah, it was a really every scene felt necessary. So Elizabeth Sparkle, she's a fading Hollywood star who has a long-running aerobics TV series. Which do you remember that thing from like damn, I don't even know if you remember this thing like aerobicize.
Oh my God, yeah, of course I do. My
So,
mom had all those VHS cassettes.
but they were kind of like pornographic in a weird way, right?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose that's obvious. That's part of it. Yes.
Because I remember as like a very young kid seeing those. Like I don't think they were. I think they were on like like some cable network or something.
Yeah,
And
I remember them being on VHS. I don't remember being able to turn on, NBC and seeing something like that.
it wasn't NBC, but it was like WPIX or some cable channel or something.
Right.
But maybe am I talking about the right one? Aruba size? Aruba. It was like very it felt like I shouldn't be watching this when I was like a kid because it's yeah 1980 to 1982. Yeah, because it was very sexual, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And as far-fetched as it seems to have a big star doing something like that, Jane Fonda did this very thing back in the 80s.
And hers was a little bit more like legit in some ways, you know what I mean? Like the
Little classier.
aerobicized, yeah, a little classier. The aerobicized videos always seem like meant for you to like kind of like watch in a dark room by yourself somewhere, you know?
You're probably not wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, Elizabeth Sparkle is was wildly popular in the twilight of her career. And we run into her on her 50th birthday, which is not old, especially by today's standards, you know.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
let's mention this. Demi Moore herself is 62 years old right now.
Yeah, and again, that felt intentional to have an older actress play the part of a 50-year-old. And the Demi Moore looks great for almost any age at this point, but she does look older than 50, I think. I mean, 50 is not that I'm almost 50.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's these days is a 50-year-old in 2024 versus a 50-year-old in 1984, or you're almost dead when you're 50, basically.
Yeah.
And it was funny. There was this thing I saw on Instagram. It was like teenagers in the 80s looked like they were 35 or something like that. And they
Yeah.
scanned this like room of high school kids and they all look old. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. And it's talking about the 80s, there is this really retro feel to all of this stuff. Like it's supposed to be modern day. You see people using cell phones and things like that, but it's a kind of 80s aesthetic.
I agree with that. There was like a retro feel to it for sure. Um,
Yeah.
So it's Elizabeth's 50th birthday, and she is she learns that she's about to be let go because of her age, essentially, from by Dennis Quaid, who plays Harvey. He's the slimy, oh dude,
This guy.
slimiest of slimy, disgusting, toxic manager types. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And our introduction to him is fantastic. Like Demi Moore's character has to duck into the men's room and she's using the stall and he comes in guns a-blazing, yelling, screaming on the phone while he's taking a piss. It's very, very funny. And the bathroom in this scene, this is your first indication that this is alternate universe. Like, it's supposed to be LA. It is not filmed in LA. It was filmed in France. And that's very obvious that it's not LA, but like the bathroom stalls go all the way down to the floor, to the ceiling. That is such a European thing.
A European thing or like a Love's truck stop thing.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah,
Remember
there's a
that? Like in
yeah, oh
Love's
yeah.
truck stop, it's like you have your own little cabin to go to the bathroom in.
Yeah, those are something like that is a godsend when you're on tour.
Yeah.
Um, and this bathroom, were you getting Shining vibes from this at all?
The way it looked, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
crazy. I can notice a few references to The Shining in this. I thought
Yeah.
anyway. But it's a great introduction to this character and the kind of person he is. And we get a great scene of him taking her to lunch to basically fire her. And
And he
he's,
go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry, I'm trying
he's
to cut in here.
eating this bowl of shrimp in the most disgusting manner.
Dude, he just like massacres this bowl of shrimp, and there's like close-ups on his mouth chewing, and his mouth, it's like it doesn't even look like a mouth. It looks like this just like putrid orifice, you know?
Yeah, and he's delivering heartbreaking news to her, and he could care less. Like he's just chowing down on the shrimp, like there's doesn't have a care in the world. And when Demi Moore's character asks him a question, he goes, who's that over there?" And just basically like leaves her there. Like he
Yeah.
can't deal with anything real. He's just going to give his spiel and he wants to get out of there.
Yeah, and he's got a great outfit too. Really well dressed sort of guy.
Yeah, his outfits in this are very cartoony. There's a tough tone to balance in this movie. This movie is dark, disturbing, it's sad, but it's also very funny. And it's really hard to balance those three things, I think.
So, of course, Elizabeth is very upset. You know, it's like, you're basically giving her her walking papers on her career. And, it's like, I imagine being a woman in show business, it appears, very, very, very hard, very much a beauty contest, like at every step of the way, and that beauty being defined by these very stringent artificial standards, put forth by men, I mean, I think women, if they chose to define what they find beautiful and what men find beautiful, I believe are two different things, really. And I think that some of the things that women learn about what beauty is defined as is definitely filtered through the male consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is one of the central themes of the film. Like even just in that lunch scene, at one point, a waitress walks by and she bends over slightly, and Dennis Quaid is just checking her out in the middle of firing Demi Moore's character.
Yeah. So, Elizabeth, of course, is distracted when she's driving home, and lo and behold, there's the fateful car accident.
Yes, yeah, like she's watching her face literally be torn off of a billboard.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely a, kind of a heartbreaking thing.
Yeah,
So she's at the hospital, and this is where she learns of the substance.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, by a nurse says you're a perfect candidate. Did you notice? I don't know if you thought this. His voice sounded ADR.
Um, I'd have to think about that. I didn't really jump out at me as it being as his voice being ADR. Like
Yeah,
what about it seemed to be done in post to you?
I'm not sure. It just didn't feel like that voice should be coming out of that person's face. Something about it felt very like not off, but something felt odd about it. And again, I'm pretty sure it was intentional.
I like when they do that though sometimes, you know what I mean? Like obviously they did that to Frank and Hellraiser, you know, because Sean Chapman's as British as it comes, you know.
Right. And since this is a French production, maybe the guy sounded too French or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. You know, that could have been it. You know, maybe like they cast him at, you know, he's French and he's like, you know what, man, your accent's not quite on point, so we got to ADR your dialogue.
But not only is he in the scene, the doctor in the scene is seems uncomfortable around Elizabeth as well. Like almost sort of like Harvey. Like when she asks him a question, he gets, fakes that his beeper's going off and he has to leave.
Well, you know, keep in mind that she's famous too. You know, she's a celebrity, really, you know.
Yeah, exactly. A faded one, but still quite famous. As her friend Fred points out when she's leaving the hospital, her old friend that she doesn't remember.
Dude, that's like that was perfect, that scene, man. Just like this guy, she runs into like the high school guy, you know, and like suddenly he thinks he's in her league now, you know, because she's had a little bit of a, you know, decline, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Fred's like probably the only somewhat decent guy in this whole movie.
Hold on a second here. I got a visitor here I got to deal with. Hold on a second.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Okay, it's dealt with.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's two cats that live here still.
yeah, yeah. I heard one earlier.
Yeah. No, they love coming down here and into this room. So
Yeah, I have to shut my door, and I can hear one of them scratching at
it
the door right now.
it doesn't matter if I shut the door or not. They, you know, one scratches at the door and meows, and then I have to let him in. One of them
Yeah.
comes in, hangs out, and then leaves, and then the other one wants to sit and chill and get pets and stuff like that. So
Oh, they wreak havoc if I let them in here. They're climbing all over shit, knocking shit over. It's chaos.
yeah. So what is the substance? Okay, exactly. You know, it's this shadowy black market experimental serum system, I would say, of fluids and
Yeah,
procedures that you need to do to achieve this goal. Okay, and the goal is like you're like, oh, this makes you younger. You know, that would be like because she kind of wrestles with the idea of doing this thing. You know,
yeah. She watches the hard drive and immediately throws it in the trash. Thinks this is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. She goes out and gets drunk, and like you do when you're drunk, you make some pretty rash decisions. Like she digs it out of the trash and calls, and we hear the guy on the other line. And I love the guy who does the voice for the substance. Just constantly seems annoyed and with people who are calling.
now you know let's the state. I'm going to make the statement right now is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way Demi Moore looks. You know what I mean? It's not like
Yeah,
she's a beautiful older woman, you know, and we all get old. I know that more than anybody, you know, more than anyone probably listening to the show right now. But it's like, and there's I guess this is a double standard here. It's like men can age gracefully, you know, like guys like Brad Pitt, you know, he's older, you know, he's got some lines, you know, he got the crow feet, you know, graying hair, graying, you know, beard, salt and pepper hair, you know,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, he looks distinguished, you know.
yes,
Seasoned is another word, you know. But women are just not allowed that luxury, man. Like, you know, it's like, you know, they have to maintain this standard that's completely unrealistic, you know, and God, you know, no gray hair, you know, incredible effort put into skincare and all this sort of stuff, you know. And Debbie Moore is an incredible physical condition too, because they're just naked in this movie for a lot of it too,
yeah, yeah,
you know. So this you know catastrophe that she's dealing with is like a completely subjective manufactured thing. It's not really part of the natural world in some ways. You know what I mean? It's like it's like this abstraction of beauty that is held so high and unattainable that it's like this whole thing is really a construct in a lot of ways. Like even for men too, honestly. It's like, I just finished watching True Blood.
Yeah.
It's like all these like shirtless, ripped guys in there. And I know I mean, I know that like all these dudes like train and whatever, but then to look like that on screen, you're like dehydrated and you look like that for a short period of time, and then you drink a glass of water and everything changes, you know? No, it's true. Like that's what
Yeah.
it's like about when you have to cut weight and weigh in and stuff like that. You're 177 pounds or 185 or whatever for like the amount of time that you're on the scale, and then you drink a gallon of water and then you're 190. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, it's like this appearance, this like very abstract concept of what you're supposed to look like that's unattainable and you cannot maintain it. And that's the driving force of the stress that Elizabeth is dealing with.
Yeah, and the movie really has something to say about the contempt for women in this world, not just this profession, but in the world. Like I said, the voice on the other end of the line of the substance seems annoyed with her, and to get the substance, she has to go to this very seedy, hostile alley. I mean, there's no one else there, but there seems something very hostile about it. Like even to get in, there's a door that opens up maybe like 3 feet, and she has to bend over to get in it. Like the whole experience seems a little degrading and scary. And I think that's 100% intentional.
That part reminded me of the true LA though, you know?
Yeah, those are LA sounding streets, by like I know this is definitely supposed to take place in LA, but again, not filmed in LA. And I like that. It kind of had like it gave a completely different feel going to this alley that doesn't exist in the real LA.
Yeah, so this thing shows up, a box shows up, with very generic indicators on it of what it is. And for the substance, and there's like a system that you have to use as the stabilizer and all this. But what happens though, it's like when you went into this movie, did you really know what this was going to be about? Or did you have
No,
any concept of what was going to take place in it?
not really. No, I do my best to avoid things
Yeah.
like that. And I think I saw a trailer for it months and months before I actually saw it. So I went in mostly cold. I just knew it was about a person taking some substance. That's really all I knew.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater. We this is like one of our date nights, so we saw this in this theater, and it was like I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know how much it was going to lean into some of the places that it does, and
Yeah.
but what happened once it took the substance and engaged in this whole procedure was kind of mind blowing, man. It was like now we're in the David Cronenberg world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And once she takes it, the movie just keeps ratcheting up scene by scene, getting more and more intense. And, even right before she takes the substance, I felt like the scene was her just looking into a mirror was really intense.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue for like the next 10 minutes or so in the film. It's just like she's staring in the mirror. She doesn't need to say anything. You know what she's thinking. Just like do I really want to do this? How
hmm
badly do I really want it? And she knows this is probably a bad idea, but she does it anyway.
And the worst part about it too is like she's already been let go of her job too. It's not like
Right.
it's like this is like this. There's such desperation in it. It's like once you've been sort of cast out in this way to get back to regain that. It's like this desperation, and it's like, do I want to try? Do I want to just like fade into the obscurity, or do I want to stay relevant? Do I want to keep pushing this thing? Do I want to do whatever this thing is to get there? But there's a sense of having to gain ground to get back to the level that you were. And yeah, so what happens is like this, basically a copy of herself emerges from her body, essentially. And
Right. But it's not an identical copy.
no,
It's not a younger her. It is a younger person, a different person.
and I thought that was an interesting move on this part. It's like it's two separate people.
Yes,
Yeah,
but they are one, as you're constantly being reminded.
yeah. So I found that I'm still thinking about what the why why that was a decision was made. And she has another name too, a different name and all that sort of stuff.
Right, that she gives her. I kept thinking about the logistics of doing something like this. Like
The logistics of it.
yeah, like you get it's like an IKEA box of how to put together a desk. But it's very complicated stuff that can probably get you killed if you do
Oh yeah,
something wrong.
yeah.
And it was funny to me that Elizabeth slash Sue knows exactly what to do. She pops out of this person's back. She sews up her Demi Moore's back and is putting tubes in her and feeding her. And I kept thinking if that was me, like I wouldn't know how to do any of that shit.
Yeah, that's the science fiction part of it. Maybe this sort of thing that initiates it, there's some sort of like DNA programming or in there that gives this new creature like some basic info or operational instructions on what to do. I don't know. That's a good question though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the movie wants you to think about that too much. And
No.
honestly, I mean, it's not really important. Like, you just sort of accept that this is the reality of the film. Like, it didn't annoy me. I just found it kind of humorous that, okay, these people just know how to do all of these things. Like, it's instinct or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the logistics of being a different you, she's living in Elizabeth's apartment. She's driving her car, wearing her clothes, probably using her credit cards and things like that. And no one seems to notice that this other person has disappeared, but like all of her stuff is still being used.
Yeah, exactly. And then so it turns out like Sue s quickly rises up through the ranks of show business, and she becomes like this overnight success story. And lo and behold, she usurps Elizabeth as the main attraction of this aerobics series or show or whatever she's doing. So
Yeah, she gets her old job back,
she
basically.
basically gets her job.
And it's kind of hilarious how she just walks in there and immediately gets handed everything.
Yeah.
And we got to point out that the substance there are rules to it, sort of like Gremlins, that you can only spend a week, 7 days as the other person, or not the other person because you are one, but she can only be Sue for a week before she has to switch back to being Elizabeth, and it has to be 7 days on the dot.
Yeah, and let's be sure there actually are two people. There's two, creatures here. There's like the original Elizabeth, and one she goes into like suspended animation or whatever, and she's being fed intravenously,
Yes,
and
and
then
but
she awakens, and then they switch places basically.
yeah, I mean that's one thing I think people got kind of confused about. Where like, does Elizabeth know what Sue is doing, and does Sue know what Elizabeth is doing? And I said, I was yes, definitely. They're one person. Her consciousness is just in a different person from week to week. Were you confused about that at all?
No, I just kind of accepted it. I didn't try to like think about it and because obviously this is a fantasy world, so it's like you have a lot of like suspense of belief and everything, and there's its own rules of logic here, and so I was assuming that one knew of what the other was doing.
Yeah, they had because they constantly hammer on, "Hey, remember, you are one."
Yeah, yeah. So
And
yeah, there's a shared
I
experience.
right, and I like that just being 1 week as Sue, she just completely fucking crushes it, like gets everything that she wants, and then she has to go back to being Elizabeth, and you start to see the alienation almost right away that Elizabeth feels being back in her own body. There starts to quickly be a divide between the two.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And she becomes like real, like reclusive, and negative, and
Yeah,
yeah, and she decides to, hey, maybe I should call Fred. Maybe I should use that number that I got from Fred.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We should point out that Sue spends just a little bit too much time as Sue. She breaks the rules.
Yeah, she's the one who starts breaking the rules. That's right.
And
Yeah.
there's a catastrophic effects where if you stay in your other body too long, your matrix starts to suffer. Meaning, Elizabeth wakes up and finds she has the finger of like a very, very old sort of, hag or witch or something like that. And it further alienates her from her true self. She starts to feel more and more alone. Like you said, she calls Fred. And this is one of the saddest scenes in the movie. She's about to go out on a date with Fred, and she just can't do it.
Yeah. And and like, I think like any man who has a partner or girlfriend, whatever, has experienced some microcosmic level of this where like, like your girlfriend or wife or whatever is like, it takes you 2 hours to leave the house because they can't get the makeup right or their clothing or like, oh, this like shirt doesn't work for me or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah,
so you can imagine like a diminished version of that. So imagine an accelerated version of that anxiety. And that's what Elizabeth is going through to meet this guy, Fred, who is just like a average, regular guy, man. Nothing exceptional about him. It seems like a nice dude, but like, there's nothing exceptional about him. And she's like, and the irony is that she's like this stunning, beautiful woman. And she could
right.
wear anything. She could have just wore a hoodie and like Doc Martens and like a pair of jeans. And it would look great, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess it's one of the more heartbreaking scenes in the movie.
No
She,
makeup, hair,
yeah,
hair and a ponytail. She would look awesome.
yeah, and as Elizabeth is starting to feel alienated and alone, we see Sue is starting to get a lot of contempt for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Just like one like glimpse of her, like the chair that she sits in to watch TV, she looks at the ass imprint, and there's food wrappers around. So again, every time they switch, there's a bigger divide between the two and more disdain.
What do you think that was trying to talk about though? You know what I mean? Like, like that's something like that conflict. Like what do you think's behind all that?
I think that just anyone struggling being themselves and getting older, um, and the younger her has nothing but contempt for her just being older and not doing much with her life, and the older her has contempt for the younger her for having everything that she once had and still wants. So I really feel like this is really a film about someone like really truly struggling with themselves and hating themselves.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So things get worse, obviously. We're watching a horror film.
Yeah, well, things get better for Sue.
Well, things get better for Sue, and then Elizabeth just descends into this like hell world of rapid aging because that's what happens. It's like she's no longer just 50. She starts having the body of like this, decrepit like old woman.
Right, yeah, and she this is one of the better like more again like Sue builds this room in her apartment. She
This
puts in a
dungeon.
whole new addition to and it's interesting too the way they treat each other when they are in like when she's in Sue's body. Elizabeth is just lying there naked on the floor, no pillow, no blanket, and just thrown into this like dungeon that she made. And vice versa, like you just fall to the ground naked. There's no attempt to like make them comfortable, put them in the bed or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but Sue's crushing it. She's called into Harvey's office and is asked to, you're not on the daytime show anymore. Like you're big time now. You're doing the New Year's Eve show. Again, very old fashioned.
The New Year's Eve show. Exactly.
Yeah, but she has to spend more and more time as Sue, and she's breaking the rules because every day you have to stabilize yourself by taking spinal fluid from the older you and injecting it into yourself. So she starts taking more spinal fluid from Elizabeth to spend more time as Sue, and again, the effects on Elizabeth are just completely catastrophic.
And that's a particularly brutal because like you see this wound like becoming more and more infected, as she keeps hitting it with the needle, it's like this abscess almost.
Yeah, remind me of like Requiem for a Dream when he keeps shooting into his infected arm.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, and this is when we're starting to really move into this whole body horror, like you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She's just getting older and older and more bitter. It's like she just won't leave the house. There's she gets this French cookbook and she's cooking all this disgusting food. Which was again funny. Like she just happens to have a full turkey and blood sausage in her refrigerator. um, and she's watching herself Sue on TV
Yeah.
as Sue and talking all this shit about Elizabeth, and the contempt just gets bigger and bigger, and they start to kind of sabotage each other.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
But
Um,
Sue has the upper hand. I mean, uh, Elizabeth can't really do much to Sue, but Sue can destroy Elizabeth basically. You know, turned her into an old hag.
yeah, yeah, she's controlling the whole outcome of everything. You know, she's younger and stronger basically and has the upper hand.
Right. Elizabeth wakes up to be herself again, and this time she is really, I mean, like this hunchback with no hair, grotesque, and she's had enough. She wants to end this substance experiment that she's doing, and she gets the termination kit to kill Sue, but she can't let Sue go and brings her back to life. And there is somehow a split. They are now not one, they are now two different people that are both awake and alive at the same time. But yeah, they get into a fight. Basically, Sue beats Elizabeth almost to death just so she can go and do this New Year's Eve show. Because at this point, I mean, yeah, she spent so long as Sue, she can't go back. She doesn't want to go back. And now with Elizabeth maybe dead or almost dead, she thinks she's free and goes to get ready for this big New Year's Eve show. And things just really start to unravel, like quite literally. Her teeth are falling out, her ear falls off, and um, it's really grotesque. I would say like the last 20 minutes of this movie really ramps up just how sickening and horrific this movie is.
Yeah, it also it reminds me a little bit of Society, that film Society.
Yes, yes, yeah. The great 80s movie with all of its goopy, squishy, like practical effects.
Yeah, and also whoever did the effects in this film definitely had to be influenced by Screaming Mad George, the guy who did Society and like Reanimator and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you can see the influences on this movie. I think it's very clear that David Cronenberg was a big influence. Society, as I mentioned, The Shining, um, all really influential on this film.
Yeah, and The Fly, you know, and I think that's what gives
Yeah,
it that's what it gives it this kind of vaguely retro feel to it, I think.
yeah, I can see. Yeah, like the hallway at the studio is very reminiscent of The Shining with its the carpet patterns, very like 80s, and yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, she literally starts to fall apart and runs back home and remembers she still has some of the activation serum left. And now Sue is going to try to do what Elizabeth did and create a better version of her so she can go and do this taping. And what comes out is one of the most sickening things I've seen on screen in a long time. It
Yeah,
is
it's definitely like this nightmarish mutated grotesquerie, you know.
yeah, I mean, how would you even describe this thing? It's part elephant man, part the fly. I mean, she has teeth in her side. She has like it is really horrible to look at. It's really frightening.
Yeah, it's like it's very much like I was saying, like if you it's like in Society where there's just like these melded pieces of flesh together or The Thing or something, it's like it's this nightmarish amalgam, like this aggregate of two different people, um, in flesh, and it shouldn't make sense, but it moves and it lives somehow.
Yeah, it's clearly like monstrous. I think it's called Monstro Elizasu or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
Monstro Elizasu. That's right. Yeah,
And there's a scene of her getting ready too that is so heartbreaking and funny. Again, like the balance of all these different tones where she's putting earrings in and trying to like curl her hair, even though she only has like four strands of hair.
yeah,
It's very funny and takes like a blown up photo of Elizabeth and tapes it to her face like no one's going to notice.
yeah.
And she gets out. First of all, this New Year's Eve show seems completely insane. It's like network TV, but there's naked girls like dancing in the background.
Yeah, once again, it's in this like bizarro reality that, and that even makes it even more bizarre and strange, this whole segment of the movie.
And the way when she gets in front of the crowd to do this show, it's interesting too. Like the reaction to her and how she looks is more anger than fear, which I think the movie's trying to say, like, how dare a woman get old or change?
Kinda,
Like,
yeah, that's what I was picking up on too. Exactly. It's like I'd be scared. I'd be terrified. I'd be running for the exits if I saw something like that.
right. But instead of that, people attack her,
Yeah.
which I thought was an interesting way to do it, which of course erupts into mayhem. She starts falling apart. Her arm breaks off. Blood is flying everywhere. There's gallons of blood used in this scene. And again, while what you're watching is horrific, my girlfriend and I who watched this, we were laughing hysterically at just like, well, oh my God, what is happening?
Said I saw this in the movie theater and it was uh a pretty like the people that go to this particular theater are like film people. So there was there was they reacted in the same way where it was like some people there was like this laughter, but it was like a laughter of just like, my God, I can't believe this is going in this direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
I was right along there with them too. We were both laughing like, oh my, I just can't believe my eyes. This is they're I just can't believe they're going in this direction as hard as they are.
Yeah, as like this is not what I was expecting when I sat
Not at
down to
all,
watch it.
man.
Like
No.
I'm just like, man, what the hell is going on? This is insane. And yeah, she starts to break apart more and more until she's just this blob and her original face, which crawls over to her star on the Walk of Fame and just fades away into nothing.
Yeah.
And,
And then there's like some tourist that walks over and drops like a sandwich or something like that on her star.
yeah, yeah. Like at the end, I mean, it's a very sad ending.
Yeah. The end.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't know about you, man, but like when the credits started to roll like this, man, I could not stop thinking about this movie for like days and days.
Same. I mean, we both were like, this is like one of our I think this is Tina's favorite horror film of the year. And for me, it's one of my top three right now.
As of right
And
now, it's one or two. Like right after I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's the best. But there's still a few films I need to see, but this really blew me away.
yeah, it was so uncomfortable and like thought provoking, and really just as a film, really well done and incredible acting. I've never seen Demi Moore in a genre film before, so that was interesting. And
Yeah,
um, and it just had a lot of without being like, it's funny to say, ironically heavy, not being heavy-handed, even though this film is very heavy-handed.
totally.
It's not like preachy about any of the stuff that it's and the ideas that it's trying to portray. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I noticed that too. There's a lot of talk about woke Hollywood these days and all that stuff and how people are sick of it. And to some extent, I can understand what people are talking about. Like a lot of like big movies seem to be preaching to you, pandering to some, talking down to some. This is how you do it. This is how you get ideas onto the screen without feeling like you're being shit on. Like this is obviously a very feminist movie, but I think it gets those ideas in there in a more organic and interesting way where it doesn't feel like, like saying, hey, you're a piece of shit, even though every guy in the movie is kind of a piece of shit.
It's basically, yeah, everyone except for Fred, really.
Yeah, and even Fred. I mean, we don't know. I mean, even Fred's a little slimy. Like you said, like
Yeah.
he's like, "Hey, call me. Oh, we can be friends now." Uh, the movie is not subtle at all, but it's not like you said. It's not preachy. It's not talking down to the audience. It presents you with these ideas and leaves you to think about them long after you've seen it. And I think that this is the way you do it. This is how it's done. And Hollywood could take a few notes from a film like this.
It doesn't, the other thing too, it doesn't have that Hollywood checklist, like there's like the, for a while you're seeing movies. Okay, break out the checklist. We got trans, people, we got a gay character,
Yeah,
we've got an overweight chick in the movie, it's
right.
like there wasn't any, I mean, it was a kind of about that too, in some ways about, body image, but it didn't run down all of the requirements that make a film acceptable for like some liberal leaning person to enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
agree with what you just said. I mean, a few years ago, films were being marketed as like, Marvel. Like we have the first gay character on screen, and I'm like, who is this for? Is it for you to feel better and feel like you're doing something? You know what I mean? I feel like people don't. I mean, not that they don't want a gay character in the movie, but they don't want you to be told to go see it for that reason. And
Totally.
yeah,
Who was the
I
first
mean,
gay character? Who? Who was it?
I was around the Eternals. It was one of the Eternals, which a movie I really liked, by the way. Um, but yeah, it seems to ring hollow, like some sort of giant corporation trying to pander to people, like, oh, this woke thing is really popular here. Let's do this now. And when it becomes unpopular, they're gonna run away screaming from it, saying, "Oh, that was never our intention." Meanwhile, smart films like this are getting made that just presents you with these themes and ideas, and like, hey, think about this, what you will get out of this, what you will. I think the director definitely has something to say, and probably hopes you take some things away from this film.
Of course, it's European too. So that's they have a
Yeah,
different, which, yeah, I hate to say it, but a lot of the smarter films come from abroad.
yeah. By
You
abroad,
know,
you mean overseas?
yeah, I mean from another country. I don't mean
Yeah,
from a broad, meaning a woman. I mean, no, they come from over, they have an over like an international perspective on things. And
yeah,
I think international in Europe, filmmaking is looked at differently. It's not so much of like this factory churning out product, and that's like why I think European films or Asian films, anything that's not from the United States is a little more thoughtful.
yeah. I completely agree. And I like there's a lot of comparing this to David Cronenberg. I don't think David Cronenberg would have come close to making anything like this. You can see the influence, but it really goes its own way and has
Yeah,
different
yeah.
ideas than Cronenberg has
I,
on his mind.
I'm on board with that. Like, it's definitely not like a rip. I mean, it's not a rip off of Cronenberg. It's an influence. Like the body horror aspects of it, like the places that they go with it are very much reminiscent of something that like The Fly and like
Yeah,
and
Dead
all that
Ringers
sort of
too.
dead ringers exactly. And movies like Society just for the grotesqueness of it too.
Yeah, I mean, this was a tough assignment. Like it's very horrific, it's very sad, it's very funny, and you put those three things together, and it's hard to make it work. This is such a great balancing act. Sometimes all three of those things are happening at the same time, and it works so well. I mean, I would say think most people, if you're not like a genre fan, you watch this, you've probably never seen anything like this before in your life.
Yeah. No, this is like and that I think that might be the intent, man, to draw people into having an actress like Demi Moore in it. And even Dennis Quaid. I don't think he's been in a horror film either.
No, and originally Ray Liotta was cast in that part, but sadly he passed away.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, can you just see Ray Liotta playing that part?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Dennis Quaid does, a fantastic job. Dennis Quaid is older than Demi Moore in real life. He's 70 years old.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Which again, I think the movie is making you see the double standards of that industry where this much older man is saying, "Hey," to this woman, "You're too old for this."
Also, like besides all the, the sort of meditations on women's beauty in general, and like, age and all that stuff, there's another more universal component to this film that has to do about letting go of things, like realizing that a certain era of your life has passed and it's time to move into another chapter of your life.
Yes.
And that could be for men and women. That's not necessarily specifically for women. Like Demi Moore, like the whole thing of like, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing that my career as an aerobics, extravaganza is ending, and there's something else to do next. That's different. That doesn't rely on like this, perception of what people see as beauty or physicality or something like that.
No, absolutely. I found this movie very relatable with someone who's getting older myself and
Yeah.
starting to wrestle with and do I matter? Am I invisible to everyone? Um, obviously this film is speaking to the female experience, but I think anyone can relate to it at any age or gender or whatever. It's like you said, like deals with things that we all deal with.
Yeah, it's just now I'm starting to think about this film. Is this streaming? Where's it streaming right now?
You can buy it on Apple right now.
Oh, so it's not like on any of the networks yet, like any of the platforms. It's just
No,
still, it's
not
like,
that I know of.
yeah. I think this is going to be a Blu-ray purchase for me, honestly. You know?
Yeah, hopefully a Blu-ray with a lot of extras. Like I would really love to know like the process of making this movie. Uh, I just remember like at watching the credits roll and like God damn, like hundreds of people worked on this, and just seeing like the different like what I caught on the corner of my eye. One of the credits was uh, Sue's prosthetic breast team. Um, I thought, oh, those are prosthetics. That's interesting. I'd like to know more about that.
Oh,
Um,
really? I thought she was au natural in those scenes.
apparently, according to well, I looked this up after I saw that in the credits that there are some scenes that they are prosthetics, and
Hmm, okay.
the actress said so herself.
Hmm.
So
I'll have to
there you,
take a closer look, I think.
yeah, this is definitely going to be a purchase for me. And okay, what do you give this?
Oh, I give it a 5 out of 5, man.
Yeah, me too. Easy 5 out of 5. This I think is dethroned Longlegs as my favorite horror movie of the year. Totally took me by surprise. I had a feeling it would be good. I did not know it would be this good and this interesting. And man, this is just movies like this don't come along every year.
I think that this is also going to go down as one of those tentpole moments in horror in the genre in horror films in the making of horror films. I think it's going to be one of those like milestone movies, really, where not just because you have Demi Moore and Dennis Quaid in it, who are not necessarily genre film, you know, mainstays, or they've never been in genre films prior to this, but because of just this is a level up for, I think, the genre in general as a whole.
I completely agree that this will become one of those movies that people are influenced by, where, instead of people saying I was really influenced by The Fly or David Cronenberg, I think younger filmmakers say I was really influenced by The Substance.
Yeah.
I can easily see that happening. I think this film is going to stick around for a long time as people continue to discover it and talk about it. I mean, everyone I've talked to about it was just like, man, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Absolutely, man. Like totally it was. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna get this on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's available yet or if there's a pre-order or something like that.
That I'm not sure about. Probably. It seems to take things what much longer to get to physical media now.
Yeah, well, this had a pretty long run in the theater, I think for, considering how films sometimes they go in for like a week and then they disappear.
I think by indie standards, this movie did pretty well.
Oh
There
yeah.
was a huge, huge buzz and word of mouth about it, um, which doesn't surprise me. Of course, if you wander into the theater and see that, you're gonna leave like talking about it, telling everyone, "God, I just saw this insane movie."
Yeah. Well, there you got it, guys. This is definitely going to be talked about again later this year when we do
Mm,
our wrap up of 2024. So, yeah.
absolutely.
Take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye now.
Beats you with his anger.